What is it?
Oh my God! I didn't see you there.
Could you stop?
Sorry, didn't see that time either.
Oh,
Empty.
oh, nevertheless, it's good to see another amongst the living. Oh, you must be from Bravo team.
No, I'm Comet Ping Pong. I joined Star Zulu about last week.
Zulu team?
Yeah, it's 24 ranks below Bravo.
Oh, well, I'm Special Agent Kevin Naruto. I'm from Alpha. Are you the only Zulu member left?
Well, after our helicopter made a forced landing, I just tried to find a house.
Oh!
You okay?
Oh!
You okay?
When the helicopter landed, we got attacked by a wild bunch of dogs. And Bibimbap and Carly, they didn't make it. And I went back for Snipes, and I got bit by it. So I ran for the nearest house, and that's how I ended up here.
Well, lucky for you, I'm a field medic, so we have plenty of medical supplies stocked up here, so I can pretty much treat any wound.
Oh, thank God I met you, Special Agent Comet Ping Pong.
Where exactly does it hurt?
Oh, pretty much the chunk of missing flesh where the dog bit into me.
Good, I got just a thing for that.
Oh. What is it?
It's the green herb laced with red herb. I mixed it myself.
Well, what about me?
I don't think I can let you have any of this.
Why not?
I have a strain myself. It's H virus simplex 2 strain.
H virus. Oh, umbrella. When will this nightmare end?
Yeah, a brother did this.
Special Agent Comet, is there anything you could possibly give me? Is there... Special Agent Comet Ping Pong, is there anything you could possibly give me? Oh, it hurts so bad. My eyes are getting bloodshot and I'm starting to see purple.
Yeah, the green herb will do that to you. Luckily, I just have just a thing in my fanny pack here. Military grade corn chips.
Oh.
All right.
I need you to treat me. I'm dying. Look, Special Agent Ping Pong, I need to be as clear as I possibly can. I need you to dress my wound so that I don't die. I'm gonna die.
I got just a thing for that. Hold on. It's not bad.
It's almost too late. Look, listen to me, Comet. I don't have much time left, so I need you to listen. Reach into my holster and pull out my combat knife. I need you to amputate.
Amputate? Why didn't you say so earlier?
Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Of course I do. I got my amputation degree at Wesker University. I'm still paying off the debt. Alright, turn your head and cough. Just a little bedside manner. 1, 2...
You're cutting below the wound!
Hey, I don't come to your work and slap the nemesis tentacle out of your mouth. Don't tell me how to do mine. Kevin! Agent Naruto! Good as new. Heck of a job, Comet Ping Pong. The pizza I ordered from Gates was supposed to get here a while ago. Gates Pizza? More like Late's Pizza. Gate? Pizzagate?
Resident Evil 7 is finally out, and it's been met with generally positive reviews across all gaming media outlets so far. So if you're watching this video, chances are you've already made the decision whether or not you're gonna play it, or maybe you've already played it. So I'm approaching this video from the perspective as a person that's played through all of the mainline entries and most of the spin-offs within the Resident Evil series, and unironically loves the trash movies and the novels based on the source material. So when I take a step back from the media sphere of either absolute praise or disgust with the various directions this series has taken over the years, I take solace in the fact that Capcom is still making Resident Evil at all. So as long as they keep trying out new ideas, there's always a chance that they'll eventually land on a good one. I know I came off as skeptical and pessimistic in my Resident Evil Beginning Hour teaser review because I accused Resident Evil of riding the hype wave left behind in the wake of PT, also known as the Silent Hills demo. I still stand by that sentiment. But at the end of the day, unlike Silent Hills, Resident Evil 7 finished development and was released. So it can be judged by the merit of the end result instead of being judged against a great demo with great potential. I'm gonna admit my biases up front. I'll admit that I had a bias going into Resident Evil 7, as the original Resident Evil and remake are my two favorite games in the series. The third-person fixed camera style of gameplay with the quote-unquote tank controls were what I felt to be the core experience of a Resident Evil game. You either had to adapt to the controls and the weird camera angles or die. That was just part of the gameplay. We didn't complain back then, we got good. When you play Remake, you have to enter into a survival state of mind if you're ever gonna finish the game. Yeah, I'm one of those Resident Evil hipsters that prefers the originals to the action-packed QTE shooting gallery modern series, which, to be fair, are fun games when you have a friend, and for the most part, I enjoyed my time playing through 4 and 5, the last two Resident Evil games that were ever released. It's weird, it's like Capcom forgot to make a 6th installment and jumped directly into 7. Maybe this is a clever marketing technique, and the jump would get people talking, like the naming of the Xbox One. Hold on just a minute here. You're telling me Resident Evil Giraffe Head is part of the mainline series? When did that happen? Oh god. Now I'll never understand what's going on in the story. I don't have time for this, so I guess I gotta go and watch a summary video of it now.
So they have him in those extremely action-oriented and action-heavy fucking segments where literally it was like third-person fucking Call of Duty or Gears of War. I mean, everybody was just running around like, steroid gun, go! My dick is small, so are my balls, but my muscles are fucking huge.
Good. All caught up now. Thankfully, no one has to play that game to understand what's going on in 7. However, the Resident Evil 2 port on the Game.com is mandatory playing if you want to comprehend all the layers of exposition going on. So crank up those black levels, grab some AA batteries. Pixel Coon City is facing a viral outbreak after Umbrella unleashed the deadly strain known as the TI virus on the citizens. And it's up to rookie cop Lego Cuberty to save the day. Do you have what it takes to position your body near a constant source of light so you can experience true survival horror? Let's be real for a minute. This series has undergone so many facelifts, spin-offs, and mutations, so there's no real basis for what a true Resident Evil game should be. But at this point, if we're going by sales alone, the series from Resident Evil 4 onward has been far more successful. If you want your game to sell high numbers, which audience should you really shoot for? That's the dilemma they faced when making Resident Evil 7. The way I look at it, any attempt to bring the series back to its roots and move away from the modern action-style format is a huge risk to take. So I'm so fucking thankful that Capcom took that risk and created something that has finally united Resident Evil's severely splintered audience to kind of come together in the middle and concede that, it's pretty good. So I thought instead of making is this a traditional 10 out of 10 10 game? Is this, what is this out of compared to the other Resident Evil series? Look, okay, I'm just gonna talk about what I liked and what I didn't like, and then you can just agree or disagree, and then give me an actually comment when I'm wrong, or when you think I'm wrong.
Fucking shitcock! Show yourself!
I thought I'd start off with the issues I had with the game, and then follow it up with what I thought really worked for me. Before you accuse me of being blinded by nostalgia, I did like this game, and it's the best Resident Evil I've played in over a decade. It's a step in the right direction for the series, but it's still far from perfect, okay? Okay? Can you give me that? Okay, so my first big gripe is the setup for the game's story, and your overall reason for doing the things you do in the game. It's a joke, and let me explain why. The game begins with a video playing of Mia Winters, the protagonist's missing wife. This is the setup. We're supposed to like Mia and understand that she's just doing a babysitting job. I guess it kind of works. Actually, it's Mia that's watching an MPEG video of herself on a laptop delivering a heartfelt message to Ethan, who's not there, and she sent this out 3 years prior. I'm not really sure why she watched it, since it was a video addressed specifically to her husband, so she should already know what was on that video. Anyways, she tries to then send him a new message that she films on the spot to warn him to stop looking for her and stay away. Okay, so minor gripe here, but why does the laptop webcam need the frame lines and the blinking record icon for this scene? Is she planning on picking up this laptop and framing her shot on the go? Or did the developers think that people would get confused by a woman talking to a laptop? After this, we're left to assume that Mia's video warning made it to Ethan, and that caused him to drive out into the middle of nowhere, Louisiana, to then go rescue her. That sounds like a normal setup to a rescue plot. But no, the video never made it out. Instead, Ethan received an email from a person alleging to be Mia, and apparently this following email was just enough proof for Ethan to go out and put his life in danger. Dulvey, Louisiana, Baker Farm, come get me. That was it. I can allow for a little plot convenience here to get the ball rolling. Maybe his actions were out of pure love or desperation. Sure, but come on, man. At least James from Silent Hill 2's letter from his dead wife Mary included some personal shit that only he and Mary could have known, that at least gave it some credibility before he drove out to Silent Hill. Regardless, at least in that game you could excuse James's reasoning as the town of Silent Hill calling out to him, or his compromised state of mind getting the best of him. But here, God, all it takes is a quick 7-word email 3 years after the fact for Ethan to drop everything in his life, drive out to the Yellow King stomping grounds, and put his life in danger. Either Ethan is the most gullible person on the planet, or Resident Evil 7 takes place on Ethan's very first day on the internet, which honestly would have made for a much more interesting setup. I would have had no problem with Mia's stay away video being sent to Ethan and having the opposite of the intended effect, thus causing him to drive out and find her despite her warning to kick things off. It would have made more sense. Not even Ethan's dude bro friend, who's never referenced again, can convince Ethan to reconsider.
Dude, it's been 3 years.
I know, but what if it is her?
You raise a good point, Ethan. I mean, who else could it be after 3 years? And you got a whole 7 words on the email? Whole 7 words? Okay, well, definitely won't be like that time where I got a 7-word email and I ended up getting catfished by a family of redneck cannibals, and I didn't make it out with my hand, so that won't happen to you. Bruh, for real? It might be a dude. Bruh, for real? It might be a dude. You just gotta roll with it. But bruh, for real? Why didn't Ethan just call the cops or hire a private investigator to check things out beforehand? It's not like the email was, Dulvey, Louisiana, Baker Farm, come alone or else they'll kill me. Alright, you know what? I'm nitpicking the story way too much for a game that's in a series where this is considered canon. At this point, I've played through a good chunk of the PlayStation VR library through demos or purchasing games, and for a game to come out claiming to be the first AAA VR experience, Resident Evil 7 can barely hold a candle to a $20 title like Until Dawn Rush of Blood. Unless, of course, you buy the 4D Resident Evil candle. Once you light that up, you're gonna smell some serious shit. Guys, Capcom has harnessed the power of the fourth dimension. They've conquered time with their state-of-the-art candle technology. Why is nobody talking about this on the news? The fucking fake news throwing up the smoke screens. In the simplest terms, the VR experience feels tacked on and unrefined and it don't work good. Maybe you've heard the PSVR has an issue with screen dooring, which makes everything in the game world look like you're 7 years old and you're standing outside on your neighbor Dustin's front porch, looking in and watching him and your friends play video games. But he comes up and he tells you that he's grounded and his family is moving away tomorrow, so don't come by anymore. Then you see him on the school bus the next day and you try and confront him, but he don't even talk to you. It's that specific feeling exactly. I'm sorry, I feel ashamed and partially responsible for buying into the VR hype surrounding this game. Because it's obvious that concessions were made in the game to suit the PlayStation VR version. And these concessions lessen the overall quality of Resident Evil 7, especially for PC owners who don't even get to experience the VR mode. Which makes so little sense considering it's the platform with the most available VR devices. Anyway, if you can get past the screen dooring effect and the radial blurring around every corner of the screen, you'll definitely get a sense of how bad this VR experience is when you see how your character turns in the world at weird 30-degree angles. But along the way, he keeps dropping all the frames. The turning is like a DVD skipping, and walking is super slow in VR. If that wasn't immersion breaking enough, anytime some meaningful action takes place in the game where you have to interact with an object with your arms, you find out that Ethan was Rayman all along. And it's still a better plot twist than the real ending to this game. I just want to know why disembodied floating limbs made it in the final cut of the game. The point of VR is to make the player feel like they're in the game, not remind them that they're playing one. So how does the combat work with this game? Well, when you want to shoot something, you've got to aim your head where you want to shoot and then fire with the controller. They didn't incorporate a PlayStation Move in this design, for what reason I don't know. This would make sense if you were turning your head and looking through the sights of your gun or something. The gunplay in VR is just as exciting as moving a mouse pointer and clicking on an enemy's head. What innovation. This is the definitive way to play. What a truly immersive VR experience. AAA. This style of gameplay would be fine if you only had situations where the enemy is always in front of you. But in this game, you're always on the run trying to put some distance between you and the enemy. And in some cases, you have enemies coming at you from all different sides, so you're constantly turning your head and awkwardly trying to turn your body, but you're dropping frames. And then God help you if you look down and see your arms floating in the middle of space. Guys, I'm a believer in VR. It's why I went out and bought the headset in the first place. I've played some great games that have gotten this right. I have a high tolerance for odd motion as well. I'm an avid roller coaster rider, and I didn't even complain once when I played through Wario Land on the Virtual Boy. It was worth the eye cancer. But I had to take off my headset after 3 hours of playing Resident Evil 7, pop a Dramamine, and hold on the ground to stop the world from spinning. I think this is a classic case of they didn't stop to think if they could, they should have stopped to think if they could, they should. Jeff Goldblum. I don't want to completely shit on the VR experience because it's not all bad. The 3D sound processing on the headset is well done, and it's helpful in situations where you want to locate your enemies by sound alone, or for the occasional jump scare spook. The VR truly does shine during the moments where you're stationary and you sit down and watch a scene play out, like the first time you meet the Baker family. It was made far more unsettling with the gross things and knives being shoved into your face. I loved it. And then you get up and walk around and things start to fall apart. Oh no, my character's hand got cut off, but his floating arm, I guess he's been okay all along with that. I have to ignore that to be truly immersed. It's a AAA experience, and it was the reason why the PlayStation VR was made for a game like this. It's absolutely nothing like the Xbox 360 Kinect exclusive game Rise of Nightmares, and it will never remind anyone of that game because this is a AAA experience. Beyond that, I'd say PlayStation VR makes a great game unenjoyable, and you're better off sticking to just 2 dimensions, because if you start to fuck around with 4, you might accidentally burn your house down. One continuing motif that permeates this game are these little found footage segments that act as the flashback sequences. When you find a VHS tape and you take it to a VCR, you play out a segment as another character in the story, which feeds you a little exposition and guides you to a clue on how to progress in the present time. In general, I'm fine with these, and I fully acknowledge that this is kinda dumb to have VHS tapes in 2017, but I guess those Paranormal Activity and Ringu movies are still popular, so throw it in. But I cannot suspend my disbelief for these moments. They don't make sense. Outside of the introductory tape you find where there's an actual news crew filming on location at the Baker estate. That works well. Beyond that, it seems like the VHS segments were shoehorned in because they couldn't think of a better way to transition from character to character. Why would Mia run from Marguerite Baker whilst lugging around an SVHS studio camera, occupying one of her hands that could be better suited for carrying a weapon? Then at some point, Mia was able to then label that tape with a Sharpie and place it somewhere conveniently for Ethan to find. It's a little stupid. That's all I'm saying. That's not to say that the VHS segments themselves were bad, because the segment where a certain character has to escape a puzzle room is one of the greatest moments that the game has to offer, and I truly love that bit. I guess the VHS segments were just an artistic choice, and it was just style taking precedence over making sense. So turn your brain off. Turn your brain off, and you're gonna enjoy it. Okay, don't look too far into the spooks. The Baker Mansion and the overall Bayou setting were fantastic. Love them. Would visit again. You get drawn into the redneck atmosphere with the taxidermy animals, bizarre puzzles and contraptions, hidden rooms all intertwining throughout with their own bit of personality and story to tell. Then you reach the last third of the game, and all of a sudden they throw you onto a boring ship where you have to play as the worst character with useless weapons. Look, Resident Evil, ships as settings aren't interesting or fun. Didn't you learn that the first 3 fucking times you use them? I mean, how do you follow up a drab, colorless ship segment? Then by making the player take a trip down through the salt mines until they reach the end of the game. Let's just make it an enemy shooting gallery along the way so the player won't notice that we forgot to make interesting assets during this entire last stretch of the game. Alright, Miles, any further gripes? Yeah, Miles, just a few, but let's take a break from the negative and focus on where Resident Evil 7 won me over. Sound good? Yeah, I guess so, but are you gonna mention the ending? No! We're gonna spoiler break that. Okay, let me start by saying I love the majority of Resident Evil 7's story. What? Despite the nitpicks I had with the setup, here stands a game that so desperately wants you to forget the previous one in the series, so it can be judged by its own merits. And I'm so happy that Resident Evil 7 chose to ditch most of the long-running Umbrella plot and didn't force in a cast of cameos or Barry Burton memes to try to appease the older fans. Let me stop you there. Yes, there are some cameos and slight references to other Resident Evil games. They're mostly motifs, but some of the references are super obscure even by Resident Evil standards. Alyssa Ashcroft from the Outbreak series got a shout out in a game? What the fuck, they're acknowledging the good shit now? What I'm getting at is that Resident Evil 7 could have been just as good by any other name than Resident Evil. Cut out the references entirely and Resident Evil 7 could have been a successful soft reboot, but I am glad they included the little nods here and there. When they're little. It's a great jumping on point for any newcomer to the series, so you can get your friends to come in and play this and not feel lost. I feel like horror works best when it's on a smaller scale, when it's easy to follow and makes all the players and stakes known from the get-go. That pays dividends into creating tension and overall a better atmosphere. It's why so many horror novels take place in a static location or a small isolated town. There's no place to run, no cell phone service or lifeline, adapt or die. But in this case, there is cell phone service, so I don't know why he didn't call anyone. Another thing I really enjoyed was how they handled the inventory. Inventory management is back, and it's more exciting than ever. Its implementation does make for some tense moments, because instead of pausing the action to mix chemicals or reload, you do everything in the moment. You still have a finite space, and you have to carry essentials for every given situation. Many people hate resource management, but this is a survival game. It's the crux of the gameplay, and I think it was handled very well here. But if you're still complaining about the lack of inventory space, you can find backpacks along the way, but sadly, you can't equip cool compasses or swap out articles of clothing on the fly to stay dry. Missed opportunity, Capcom. Alright, so let's talk about my favorite aspect of the game, the Baker family. They steal the show every time they're on screen and greatly overshadow the Moldy Men, which are the zombie stand-ins for Resident Evil 7. The Bakers are ripped straight out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and garnished with a splash of the Evil Dead. There's a subtle comedic and ultimately tragic element to each one of the family members, and their stories are fleshed out very well as the game progresses. The encounters with Jack and Marguerite gave me flashbacks to the Mr. X or Nemesis bits of older Resident Evil games. But I find them to be far scarier with how helpless they make you feel when you're cornered by them. They feel like they kind of belong more with the Clock Tower series of games, which I've found to be more spookier than Resident Evil. Fighting the Bakers is mostly a worthless endeavor, as they're nearly indestructible, and they mock you the entire time you're shooting them. It's great.
Heck of a thing, ain't it? Sure shit beats the hell out of dying.
The first boss fight with Jack Baker in the garage sets a high fucking bar for the rest of the game. Insanity personified. During this fight, I'm running around the garage like a chicken with his head cut off, wasting ammo into his head, and he's making fun of me the entire time. Then he fucking gets into his car and does donuts until I die. I was flummoxed. I had to restart this fight a couple of times, but this time around paying attention to the room layout and treating the fight more like a puzzle instead of the typical Resident Evil boss fight where you just shoot the glowy spot until the thing dies. They save that bit up for the third Jack encounter, but I digress. It was after this fight that I was completely on board with Resident Evil 7. I feel the most crucial aspect to any survival horror game is figuring out the power dynamic. And for the most part, the modern Resident Evil series were never able to strike a perfect power dynamic balance. You see, modern horror tends to go for one of the two extremes. They either give you a protagonist that's completely helpless with no way to defend themselves, they gotta run through a hall from the Slender Man, or they go for the opposite extreme and they give you an overpowered brute in the land of plentiful ammo. If you ignore the bit where Ethan's able to reattach severed limbs, you'll understand that he's the perfect balance between weak and strong protagonist. They pace the game out well enough and just give you enough resources to allow you to push on if you stay resourceful and don't waste all your ammo. Out of all the video game experts out there in the world that's calling Resident Evil 7 the great return to form that this series has been waiting for over a decade, out of all their points, the game balance is the most valid one, in my expert video game opinion. But what I like most is it gives the player three choices. If the game's too hard for you, crank it down to easy mode. If it's too easy, bump it up to normal. But if that's too easy for you and you want something more like the original Resident Evil with limited saves, you can unlock the Madhouse mode. And no, I haven't beaten Madhouse mode, but I am planning on going through it and having a miserable time. Can't wait. Alright, this review is running way too long as it is, but I want to warn you that I'm going to talk about the biggest spoiler in the game, and also my biggest issue with Resident Evil 7. I want to reinforce that I love this game overall, but I just can't let this shit slide because the game distracted me with 2 great acts. Let's talk about the conclusion. And here we go. The Evelyn Baker storyline. I saw the twist with the old lady coming from the beginning, but I was pleased by that part. I thought having an elderly woman being the main antagonist was a fun idea, and it was cool to see how they set up her brief appearances throughout the game. If only it were that simple. For some reason, in a terrible move to differentiate itself from Silent Hill, they had to run with the creepy, jealous ghost kid angle. I know how it works story-wise with the Ghost Evelyn parts not actually being a ghost, it was just an old lady fucking with the heads of the infected, but the dark dress and the long black hair and the pointing was a little too on the nose to be a coincidence, but you can call it an homage if you want. I'm just calling it unoriginal. Turns out she wasn't a ghost kid, she was just a genetically created super weapon kid with Benjamin Button's disease that stopped taking her medicine and got old in a week or something. When the game explains how Evelyn's mind control powers work over the infected people, it kind of takes away the spookiness of the Bakers and instead makes them more tragic characters. Now I just feel sorry for this man whose skull I'm jamming a chainsaw into. Why you gotta do that to me? Now, the main issue I have with Evelyn was the insistence on making her origin linked to the progenitor virus, and then just out of nowhere flying in the Umbrella storyline to shit everything up. I have no problem with the helicopter pilot dropping in a super weapon to save the day. That was a great nod to the original Resident Evil, and they did need to wrap up the game before it went on too long, but the ending came off as awkward and out of place. Here's what I mean. It's like they had spent all this time building this entire standalone experience and storyline only to knock it all down by dropping in a pointless Chris, or maybe not Chris Redfield, wait and find out in the DLC cameo. I guess it could be worse. At least they didn't pull Wesker out of the volcano. Still, I want to further reinforce, I loved my time with Resident Evil 7 so much that I wanted it to forge its own identity without being held back by the last decade of the series. This is entirely a problem that I might be alone in having, and I'm gonna own up to it. It may just be me bitching at nothing here, but if you feel the same way, please let me know. However, this game does prove to me and the many fans that Capcom is still out there and still trying out new ideas. So I cannot fault them for that. Despite some of its shortcomings, I'd still place this game right below Remake as my favorite in the series. Yes, I was that smitten with Resident Evil 7. Before I close out this video, something has been bothering me this entire time. The Japanese name for the Resident Evil series is Biohazard. So is the Japanese name for Resident Evil 7 Biohazard 7 subtitle Biohazard? Or is it Biohazard 7 subtitle Resident Evil? Let me check. Oh my god, they did it. Those fucking madmen.